Morning, everyone. So this is radial development number 3. Now we're going to make these on the rollers. So I made these dimensions a little bit bigger than what they were originally. They were like 1.5 to 2, and we've naturally, the smallest we can go as far as a cone shape or a round shape is 4.5 inches on our roller. So I adjusted these dimensions quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and make a 2-part video. This is part 1. And in this video, I'm going to make the drawing, and we're going to work through how to make this. Okay, so it's template number 3. Now, if you notice, this is 2 1/4 to the center line, so that'll put us at 4.5. So that's going to put this back 2.25 when we do the Cartesian coordinate system back to here. Now, we can't naturally we could figure this out on math and come back down here, but I'm going to show you a little bit different way. We're going to make this whole line, this whole piece, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to make this line at 23 degrees. And that way you don't have to spend a bunch of time figuring out this mathematical problem. Okay? Naturally, our center point of our radius is right here, and we're going to come touch this edge, and that's going to be our radius. It doesn't give us a dimension, it just shows us where our radius point is at. Okay? Now this would be to simulate, say this were a piece of pipe, or a round shape that this cone would be attaching to naturally. So I did this in 24 sections. I'm going to zoom out real quick just so you can see. To start with, here's kind of what we're going to be doing by the end of the day. We're going to make our pattern first, or our template first, and then we're going to do our projections and make our flat pattern off of that. Okay, so let's get in here and take a look at it. What I did is I drew this up and put the dimensions all here on AutoCAD so I could see it. 23 degrees, 14 inches tall. I drew a line down to make sure, straight down from this point, showing we're 5 inches, and then 9 degrees. Now if I needed to, I could put a dimension on this and figure out what it is. Okay, but I don't really need to at this point. It gives me everything else to go from there. So let's start over with this. I'm going to switch to a white color for my base project. I'm going to start off with a polyline, and I'm just going to come straight across, try to keep it nice and even. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is keep it at 0 degrees and 9.000. I'm going to do a tab, come down to 0 degrees, enter, and then I know I come back from this projection here. It was 4.5 to center line, and then this is 2 1/4 to center line. So I'm going to use the Cartesian coordinate system now. I'm going to do a negative 2.250 for my x-axis, and then my y is going to be 14 inches positive. Okay, so that puts me there. Now, if this is 2 1/4 and it's a center point, then we know we need to go negative 4.500, comma 0, enter. And then now we can just close this up. Okay. Now remember how we talked about, like, you might be able to figure out 22 degrees and you can pull the dimension here, but the hard part is you don't know exactly where this is going to come across the X, because that's at an angle, right? So the best way to do this for me is I'm going to take a polyline here and I'm going to snap to this point, and I'm going to bring this line out to about here. It doesn't matter, I'm going to trim it when I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the tab button, which locks in that distance, and then if you notice, I am now worried about my angular dimension. So we're 180 degrees to go straight across, minus 23. More than likely it's 22.5, but let's just call it out as a 23. So 180 minus 23 is going to be 157. 157 degrees, enter. Now I can escape. So now I've made that 23 degree line. I can go from there, and I would just trim this function off. Okay. Now my next dimension here, this is 9 inches across here, but this shows 5 inches directly down from there. So let's go ahead and do our polyline. We're going to come to this point, and we're going to make sure that we go straight down 90 degrees and 5.000. And as you can tell, it's 101. So tab, we want it to be 90 degrees. Enter. Okay, I can escape at this point. I'm going to do a circle by radius. Come over, click on this point. I'm going to make sure I set to there. Now I have my drawing. I could put the dimensions on it like I have here, but as you can tell, it's the exact same drawing. It's 2¼ inches to the center point, meaning 4½ across, 9 inches on the base, 5 inches down here. Everything else seems to be at a good stopping place to where I can start to make this pattern projection. 23 degrees. If I want to, that would be the one piece I could probably tie up. Okay, so let's come in, let's make sure and verify. I'm going to do a dimension from here to there, and it shows me 23 degrees. Okay, this is a much easier way because without knowing exactly where this point's at, as you can see, it's not exactly on a snap grid mode, so you want to make sure your snap is off while you're doing this. And it's hard to be able to use the Cartesian coordinate system to do that. If it were a straight wall piece, then it's fairly easy. We could say, oh, it comes down 1 inch, so our x would be minus 4½ and our y would be a -1 at that point. But when it's angular like this, instead of doing all the math, this is an easier way to figure it out. Okay, so there's how we drew that. Working ahead, I need to give me 1 second here. I'm looking to see where we are as far as time. We still have a few minutes. So to start with, what I did is I put this in, and then I went ahead and did a fillet function on top of these two edges. Okay. Now, if you're unfamiliar with layers, then we need to discuss how to add layers again. Let me just go through it real quick. We're going to do outer layers, and let's just put rings. Okay. So we're there. As you can see, I definitely have rings now. Okay, so we're still on layer 0, which is good. Now I'm going to select all of these and right click, properties, and I'm going to add them to rings. Be done, and I can take and turn those rings off. Okay. So I did that just to kind of clean this picture up just a little bit. All right, so that way we can kind of see what we're doing. When I did this fillet command, I come back through and trimmed everything out. Okay, so let's take this here and here, and we're going to, oh, I need this section. Let me go ahead and just trim this right here. I need to trim. And I can trim this one, and then this one, and it says I can't do that one. Okay, so I'm going to escape. Now I'm going to come back through. I'm going to delete that. That one needs to be trimmed again. And I want to keep this one here just to be able to make my line projections. As you notice, what I did here is I left my outside line also. You don't have to, but you could trim this up in any way that you feel free to do so. Okay, so come back over to this side, and now we're here. I cleaned this piece up quite a bit. What I did on this bottom section is I did a polar array. Okay, so if I were to do, I did a polar array, which we've done in the other videos, and in this case I did 24 because it's a much larger pattern. It's 9 inches across instead of 2. So I did 24 sections, and then I went ahead and did the same thing. Now, particularly in a long piece like this, I went ahead and changed all my vertical lines to yellow. I went up, I stopped, and then I go to the apex. Now I did half of these, and then I went ahead and just mirrored all the way over to save myself some time. Okay, and that left me with all of my yellow projections going straight up to the apex. Again, if you forget how to do that apex, you can put a polyline straight up, or you can take and let's explode that line, and I can use a trim function here and here. Takes me straight to the top. Okay. Alright, now I made a short video on line projections, which hopefully by the time you read this, see this one again, you'll have watched it, and you'll understand exactly why now we go to the right with everything that we have done. So, as you can tell, when we made these rings, let's turn these rings patterns back on. We want to make sure that since it's a full 360-degree pattern, it's a full developed piece, we want to make sure that our rings touch on both sides where it comes to the outside. Naturally, as we get in here, this piece, we have to have something to go to the right-hand side. We can't bring this ring to here because then we would be short. Okay, we want to make sure that we're tying in here, and then also, if we were to extend this line across, it would be here where this ties in, just the same as this bottom pattern. Okay, so we're there. Turn those rings back off, and I'll walk through a couple of these things with you. I'm going to stop this video at this point because we're getting close to time, and we will start on developing this pattern next. Thank you very much, and we will see you on the next one.